Hey there, besties. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to continue the recap of the manhwa The Cellist. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video because it really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Where did he go? Ji Sehun's manager wondered as he sat down somewhere in the building. His phone rang. It was Ji Sehun. Where are you? I've been worried sick. His manager said upon answering the call. You have? Ji Sehun asked with a smile. Of course. Where are you? His manager repeated. I'm not a kid, you know, Ji Sehun said, examining his hand. I found the person who left their phone behind in my room earlier. Ha. Yeah, I know, his manager replied. You found her? He added, his face showing surprise. It wasn't her. Someone else left it in there, and then the other one went inside to grab it for her, Ji Sehun explained. Let's close this case, he said, his fist clenched. Wait, what? We've been pressuring the director about their negligence towards the artist. Are you sure you want to stop now? This is clearly a breach of contract. We can nab a better deal, his manager argued. That's not necessary. There's someone else I need to go after, Ji Sehun said. He ended the call and pressed send on his message. I should go wash up now, Ji Sehun said, dropping his phone as he headed for the bathroom. His message, delivered, read, Kim Hayeon, 26. Find her. In the city, Hayeon was in a taxi. Sir, can you wait for me here? I'll go inside and grab my wallet. I don't really have anything on me to leave with you. But I live in apartment 405 in this building right here, she said, pointing at her apartment. Hey, working with people for this long gives me the ability to see through someone just by looking in their eyes. Your eyes are pure and kind, the driver said with a smile. I'll wait here, go on, he tells her. Thank you. I'll be back soon, Hayeon said as she got out of the car. Hey, Hayeon. Gina called, prompting Hayeon to turn in her direction. Huh? Gina, what are you doing here? Hayeon said excitedly as she approached Gina. Where have you been all this time, and why haven't you been answering your phone? Oh, I need to pay the taxi driver my fare, she told Gina immediately. How much is it? Is this enough? Gina asked, digging into her purse and handing Hayeon some money. Yes, perfect. Thanks. I'll pay you back as soon as we get upstairs, Hayeon told Gina, grateful for her help. Hurry up and pay the man, Gina urged. Hayeon paid the driver, saying thank you sir, before breathing a sigh of relief. You really know how to cause trouble, don't you? Gina remarked with a cheerful look. Back at Hayeon's apartment, she narrated the entire story to Gina. He dragged you out? Gina asked in shock. Yeah, to confront me about what I did in the waiting room, Hayeon replied, her face looking sad. I did hear that he was a jerk, but he's crazier than I thought, Gina said, raising her voice. Yeah, I agree. He's insane, Hayeon said softly. Sue him. Gina demanded. No, I can't. They told me not to go into his room, and yet I still did, Hayeon said calmly. It's not like he's the police. How could he just drag you out and interrogate you like that? Gina asked, still not comfortable with Hayeon's calm nature. I just don't ever want to see him again, Hayeon replied with a smile. Are you okay? You're not in shock? Gina asked, looking concerned. Not at all, Hayeon replied calmly. I felt overwhelmed rather than shocked, she thought to herself. That man, he didn't even get angry with me. If he decides to sue me, there's a lot of things that'll be a problem on my side. I caused trouble at your workplace, I yanked his hand, and smacked his head, she explained to Gina. I heard about his hand from the manager, but you even hit his head? Gina asked, looking shocked. Yeah, Hayeon replied softly. He didn't hit you back? Gina questioned, looking tense. Huh? No, Hayeon replied awkwardly. Whoa, Ji Sehun just sat there when you hit him? Gina asked, her mouth agape. He's not the type of person who would tolerate that. Once, I heard he stopped an active construction site just because he didn't like the view from his room. Apparently, he had a nice view before they started constructing a 3-story building. He came back from Germany after his orchestral tour and just said one thing. I haven't seen this before. And the very next day, his family bought the building and put a halt to all the construction. After all, he is the second son of Daemyeong Group, Gina told Hayeon. What?
Daemyeong?
Hayeon asked, her mouth wide open in shock. Yeah, it's a well-known fact. You didn't know? From what I heard, they have 3 sons, but Ji Sehun wasn't even considered their next successor. They had no intention of having their precious son tainted with all that money talk, Gina explained. Hayeon was silent, processing this new information. Anyway, someone from the center called earlier and asked me if we were friends. It seemed sketchy, so I denied it. I told them I found you through the internet because I was in a rush to find someone to fill in for me. Just letting you know, Gina added. Hayeon didn't say a word, and a brief silence fell between them. You're right, you don't even have a job yet. Maybe I went too far mentioning a lawsuit, Gina said, touching Hayeon's hand in a bid to console her. Let's just think of it as a bad experience and forget about it. We can't consider that guy a normal person. He lives in a completely different world than us, Hayeon told her. Common sense doesn't exist with him. Don't ever get involved with him. Gina's cell phone rang. Hold on, my manager is calling me, Gina said, excusing herself to answer her phone. Yes? Ah, okay. I'll see you tomorrow, she said over the phone. After ending the call, Gina turned to Hayeon. Ji Sehun told the center that he won't be making an issue out of the situation. What? Hayeon asked, surprised. Earlier my manager was pissed and told me to come to work prepared for all the backlash, but now he's a total angel. Apparently, Ji Sehun said he's not going to be pressing charges against the center, Gina explained. It's a good thing, right? Hayeon asked, looking excited. Yeah, I guess, Gina replied softly. What got into him? As Gina held her phone, Hayeon noticed something and was suddenly taken aback. She quickly dipped her hand into her pocket in shock. Wait, where is my phone? She asked. Did you leave it at the center? Gina asked her. Hayeon replied, her hand still dipped in her pocket. She remembered dropping the lady's phone she retrieved on top of the sink. That wasn't even my phone, she said, looking shocked. What are you talking about? Also, where's your bag? Gina questioned. It's in the locker at the center, Hayeon told her. Okay, where's your phone? Gina asked again. I don't know, Hayeon said, looking lost in thought. Gina watched her quietly. I think I took it out from the locker, or maybe not. I don't know. Shoot, I have a lot of calls I'm waiting for, Hayeon said, her hand resting on the table as she held her head in confusion. Gina tried calling Hayeon's phone. Your phone is off. Maybe the battery died already. I'll keep calling it and check when I get into work tomorrow, she reassured Hayeon. The next day at the Seoul Cultural Center, Gina searched through her locker for Hayeon's bag. Not here, she muttered. Meanwhile, Ji Sehun practiced playing his cello in his study, his manager standing beside him. He played with much dexterity, the music filling the room with a precise and emotive sound. A lady walked into the study, holding a tablet and moving briskly. Oh, Miss Lee, you're here, Ji Sehun's manager said, welcoming her. Ji Sehun paused his play and stood up as Ms. Lee approached him. Are you done with your tantrums? Ms. Lee questioned, wearing a smile. Ji Sehun broke his cello's bow. Tell me everything you know, he demanded, tossing the broken bow to the floor. Kim Hayeon, age 26. This is the information you gave me. The rest of the details are in here, she said, handing him the tablet. Everything you want to know should be in there, Ms. Lee added as Ji Sehun went through the tablet. He's going to go through a lot of bows over the next few days, so make sure you have extras on hand. Hayeon-sik, Ms. Lee said, revealing the manager's name. Oh, okay, Hayeon-sik said, feeling surprised. She graduated from Shinwon All-Girls Middle and High School, then from Yunlim All-Girls University. After finishing university, she worked as a telemarketer for DM Card Company for a year. Ms. Lee continued. It was easier to gather information on her since it's an affiliate of your company. She had a good reputation too, especially for handling obnoxious customers. The reason listed for her resignation was personal issues, but apparently, The company didn't want to let her go because she was one of their top employees, Ms. Lee explained, showing Ji Sehun Hayeon's cell phone. She left this at the center yesterday. There was plenty of information in here. I let your lawyer, Mr. Chun, in on the situation. He said he'd take care of it, so you don't need to worry about a thing moving forward. To give you a brief rundown, we will ask for compensation for all physical and emotional damage that severely impacted your performance. If you want to, we can take it further, Ms. Lee told him calmly. Why do you think I'm looking for that girl? Ji Sehun asked Ms. Lee, his tone excited. Obviously, for payback? She replied. No, Ji Sehun said, snatching Hayeon's phone from her. I'm going to bring her here, he added, wearing a smirk. He scanned through the phone. She has many weaknesses. This is far too easy, he thought, scrolling through her messages and calendar. He saw streams of failed and planned interviews. I heard she hit your head? Ms. Lee asked. Yeah, Ji Sehun replied, still engrossed in the phone. He went silent, continuing to scroll. Ji Sehun, Ms. Lee called out, but he ignored her. Hey, she said, confused by his attitude. Ji Sehun turned towards her and suddenly placed the cell phone against her ear. Answer the phone, he demanded. Ms. Lee hesitated for a moment. Hello? She said as someone spoke on the other end. Are you the person who has my phone? The caller asked. Tell her to come get it, Ji Sehun instructed Ms. Lee, still holding the phone against her ear. Hello? Are you there? The caller asked, not hearing any response from her. Yes, I picked it up on the street. I didn't have time to look through your phone because I was busy, but I noticed there were a lot of missed calls from this number, Ms. Lee said. Oh, really? Thank you so much, the caller replied gratefully. Are you the owner of the phone? Ms. Lee asked. No, I'm her friend, Gina answered. So, how should I give you the phone? If you're in Seoul, I was thinking of meeting up with you, Ms. Lee suggested. Oh, thank you so much. My friend really needs to find her phone as soon as possible. She has a lot of calls she's waiting for. Are you free now? Jen asked. Yeah, where are you? Ms. Lee inquired, while Ji Sehun observed their conversation. I'm actually on my way somewhere at the moment. I'll give my friend a call. Can you tell me the location and time you'd be willing to meet up at? Gina asked her. Sure, I'll text you soon, Ms. Lee replied before ending the call. Couldn't you just show up with your lawyer? What's with the acting? Ms. Lee questioned Ji Sehun. It'll scare her, Ji Sehun explained. He then sent the location to Gina, stating that Cafe Eden would be the meeting place. As it should, you almost got hurt, Ms. Lee exclaimed, momentarily speechless. Wait, do you have a crush on this girl or something? Ms. Lee asked Ji Sehun, puzzled by his actions. Yes, Ji Sehun confessed warmly. Oh, I see, she responded softly. Wait, what did you say? Ms. Lee asked, eyes widening in surprise as she grasped his reply. Ji Sehun focused on his message, texting Gina the location and confirming the meeting time at 9 p.m. Give me the car keys, he told Hayeon, opening his palm towards him. You're going to drive? Let's go together. I'll drive you, Hayeon offered. Ji Sehun looked at him seriously. I mean, safety first. I'm going to pass out if you ever get hurt, you know that, right? Hayeon joked, handing over the car key. As Ji Sehun walked away, Miss Lee asked Hayeon, do you know anything about the girl? He replied, I've only seen her face. She seemed average compared to the other girls interested in Sehun before. She was extremely normal. To be honest, I don't see what he sees in her. Miss Lee pondered, maybe she has something he desires. We should gather more information on her. Ji Sehun gripped the steering wheel firmly as he drove through the city that night, his focus unyielding. Suddenly, something caught his eye. This must be it, he muttered as he drove past Cafe Eden, the designated meeting place. Parking the car, he headed inside. He sat in the chair, reading Gina's brief description of Hayeon on his phone. Ji Sehun scanned the cafe quickly, but didn't spot her. I don't see her, he thought, typing a number into his phone and saving it as a new contact. Resting his head and closing his eyes, Ji Sehun placed his phone on the table, waiting patiently for Hayeon. Behind him, two ladies couldn't contain their excitement upon seeing him. "Hey, look at the window. He's so cute," one of them said, blushing. "Where? Oh my. It should be illegal to be that hot. Marry me," the second lady added, also blushing, but was playfully told to shut up by her friend as they both laughed. Hayeon entered the cafe, catching Ji Sehun's attention as he opened his eyes, his mood visibly lifting. "There she is," he said softly, watching her carefully. Hayeon paused at the entrance, surveying the cafe. "Let's see. Someone who's here alone," she murmured to herself, her eyes landing on Ji Sehun. He fixed his gaze on her unmistakably. "What is he doing here?" she thought, feeling a twinge of fear. Hayeon turned almost immediately, heading for the door. "Wait. Why should I run away? I didn't do anything wrong," she reasoned with herself. "Yeah, it was self-defense," she reaffirmed, turning back and walking into the cafe. Hayeon's mind raced with uncertainty as she watched Ji Sehun walk towards her. But wait, why is he walking this way? Shoot, what should I do? Should I apologize? Her face flushed with embarrassment as he passed by her as if he didn't notice her presence. "One iced black coffee, please," Ji Sehun ordered at the counter, momentarily diverting Hayeon's thoughts. "Yes, we take card," the salesperson replied as Ji Sehun made the payment. Ah, that was close, Hayeon thought, still red with embarrassment as she turned to see Ji Sehun waiting at the counter. She walked over to an empty table in the cafe and sat down, her nerves building as she anticipated meeting the mysterious Lady Gina had described. "Why isn't she here already?" "Gina said she told her what I was wearing," Hayeon thought anxiously, tapping her fingers on the table. Suddenly, Ji Sehun spoke up, startling her. "Drink up." "Not now, when the bell rings obviously," he said, prompting her to look at him in shock. He pulled out a chair and sat down facing her, his presence now impossible to ignore. "Why are you sitting down here?" Hayeon asked him, her voice trembling slightly. "This is my seat," Ji Sehun replied calmly. "I never said you could join me. Also, I'm not here to have coffee," Hayeon retorted with a serious expression. "Then why are you here?" Ji Sehun questioned her. "To find my phone," Hayeon stated firmly. Ji Sehun took out her phone from his pocket. "Oh, you mean this?" he said, showing it to her. "Wait, that's my phone," Hayeon exclaimed, reaching across the table to grab it, but Ji Sehun quickly pulled it out of her reach. "Why do you have my phone?" Hayeon demanded. "Does that matter?" "The important thing is that I'm here with it," Ji Sehun replied cryptically. "I have something I want to discuss with you, so don't think about running away." "Wait here," he added, pressing the table call button. After Hayeon's tea was served, she remained calm. "You said you wanted to talk to me about something. What is it? Let's get it over with so I can get my phone back." "I don't want to stay here any longer," Hayeon said nervously, fidgeting with her hands under the table. "Fine. Tell me your price," Ji Sehun said with a slight smile, perplexing Hayeon instantly. "I want to have you, but since you're not an object, you don't have a price tag," Ji Sehun said calmly, watching her reaction. "Which is why I'm asking. How much do I need to give you to keep you by my side? Tell me how much a day of your time is worth. Whatever it is, I'll pay it. Or should I guess?" he asked, but Hayeon remained silent, staring at him. "Let's see," he continued. "How much do people get paid at a 9-to-5 office job? I'll give you double that amount. How's that sound?" He waited, but she still didn't respond, her expression unreadable. "Triple?" Ji Sehun proposed, but Hayeon stayed silent. "You're pricey. 4 times the amount?" he offered with a soft smile. Hayeon's face turned red as she looked down at the table. "I can even give you 5 times the amount if you want." "You're worth it," he told her, noticing the beads of sweat forming on her reddened face. "You're sweating. I wonder," Ji Sehun said, leaning forward and holding her face gently. "You make me curious." "Fine, 6 times the amount. Just name your price." "I can give you more," he insisted, not giving up. "No thanks," Hayeon said, hitting his hand away and grabbing her phone. "You basically stole my phone, so I don't think I need to thank you. Also, Didn't you say you wanted to move on from yesterday's incident? This kind of conversation makes me extremely uncomfortable, she told him harshly. Was my offer too low? Ji Sehun asked. No, that's not the issue, Hayeon replied, standing up, her face still red. Then what is it? Ji Sehun inquired. You've been extremely rude to me from the beginning of our encounter today. Didn't I tell you that I'm older than you? Hayeon said, her face furious as she rested her hands on the table, her gaze piercing his eyes. Is that important? He asked, unfazed by her words. Ugh, never mind. Who cares at this point? It's not like I'm going to see you again, she said before walking away from him. Nuna, Ji Sehun called out, using the phrase younger males used to address an older female. Better? He asked, causing Hayeon to pause, her face reddening further as beads of sweat formed on her forehead. Thanks for the coffee, Hayeon said before leaving the cafe. Now alone, Ji Sehun tapped his finger gently on the table before grabbing hold of the coffee cup. Who said you'll never see me again? He murmured to himself. Hayeon walked slowly amidst the crowd as she headed home. Ugh, why do I keep sweating when I'm with that guy? She thought, wiping the sweat from her face. She checked her phone and saw a message from a company she had applied to. She didn't pass the second interview. Of course, it's okay. There are still a few more companies left, she told herself, trying to stay positive. She breathed a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of her disappointment mixed with the lingering unease from her encounter with Ji Sehun. How dare he ask me how much I am? Doesn't he know that's harassment? It's not my first time dealing with obnoxious human beings. Did he think I was going to react to crap like that? Hayeon thought angrily as she walked home. On the bus, Hayeon looked at her reflection against the glass before resting her head on it. Hey Mom, I'm on my way home, she said, calling her mother as she got closer to her apartment. Oh, the interview? You know, I didn't pass. I still have a chance, she added, trying to calm her mother. Mom, you know how hard it is to get a job nowadays. Ugh, there you go again comparing me to your friend's daughter. Yumi or Youngmi, was it? Who cares if they got accepted to a big company? What does that have to do with you? Her voice rose gently in anger. Ugh, whatever, I'm busy. I'm hanging up, she said, pushing the password to her apartment's door. I'm so sick of this, she muttered. Inside her room, Hayeon dropped tiredly onto the bed. Flashes of Ji Sehun's face ran through her mind. Maybe in my next life, I'll be as insane as him, she thought tiredly before drifting off to sleep. Unbeknownst to her, her phone rang while she lay in bed asleep. It was Ji Sehun. The next day, Ji Sehun walked into his room, dropping the groceries he had bought on the table before collapsing onto his bed to sleep. Sehun, wake up, Hyungsik said, knocking at his door before walking in. He uncovered the curtains, allowing sunlight to flood Ji Sehun's room. How is that the body of a cellist? How much does a cello weigh? He wondered, observing Ji Sehun's body as he lay in bed. We have a shoot at 3 p.m. today. It's 11 a.m. already. Did I wake you up too early? Hyungsik asked, leaning over as Ji Sehun reached for a bottle of water next to his bedside. Can you not talk like that? You're making me want to vomit, Ji Sehun told him, looking up at his face. Oh, I see. My bad. I didn't think it would make you sick. Here, have some water first, Hyungsik said, handing Ji Sehun the bottle of water. Ji Sehun gulped down the water. I couldn't sleep, he said to Hyungsik, handing him back the empty bottle. Huh? Hyungsik asked, looking confused. I couldn't sleep, Ji Sehun repeated. Yeah, I can tell. You have dark circles. I noticed your cello out in the living room, Hyungsik remarked. Did you practice all night? Maybe it's because you haven't performed in Korea for a long time, Hyungsik said, his hand against his chin as he pondered the probable cause of Ji Sehun's sleeplessness. I've been sleeping fine lately, Ji Sehun told him softly. Then, did something bad happen? Hyungsik asked. Something bad? Ji Sehun asked, giving him an awkward look. No, I mean something that might have bugged you. If you're too tired to wash up, just wash your face before we head out, Hyungsik suggested calmly, trying to ease the atmosphere. I'm not going, Ji Sehun said, turning away from him to resume his sleep. Sehun, his manager said sadly. There he goes again, he thought, crying inwardly as he watched Ji Sehun cover himself with the bedsheet. We had this shoot scheduled from a year ago, Hayeon reminded him. I didn't have any sleep troubles then, Ji Sehun responded. Yes, you're right, you don't usually have a hard time sleeping. But you did this time. After this, you get to have a month off. I'll tell them to cut it as short as possible, Hayeon pleaded, kneeling on the floor and pushing Ji Sehun slightly in a bid to get him up. Hyung-sik? Ji Sehun called. Yeah? He replied. Do you like money? Ji Sehun asked. No, I love money, Hayeon said with a cheerful look, blushing. What do you think of someone who doesn't like money? Ji Sehun asked, turning towards him. Who doesn't like money? Even children are crazy about money nowadays, Hayeon replied. Ji Sehun remained silent before getting up. Then what's wrong with her? He thought as he walked towards his bathroom. So, you're going? Hayeon asked cheerfully. Oh yeah, how did it go with Hayeon yesterday? He asked, peeking from the bathroom door. Ji Sehun turned his head, not answering him. Never mind, wash up, Hayeon said, closing the door. After taking his bath, Ji Sehun picked up his phone and called Hayeon. She's ignoring my calls and texts, he thought, grasping his phone tightly in annoyance. Later at the photoshoot, Ji Sehun posed with his cello. Sehun, can you look this way? The photographer said, snapping more shots. Great job. Loving the eyes, he told Ji Sehun. We'll do 10 more shots then wrap it up. The photographer paused for a moment before resuming his shots. Yes, doing great, just like that. Just like that, he told Ji Sehun as he continued taking photos. And that's a wrap. Let's check the photos, he said as he finished the photo shoot. Ji Sehun didn't utter a word as he walked away, holding his cello. Sehun, come on over and check your photos. The photographer called, but Ji Sehun didn't respond and kept walking. Sehun? Mr. Ji? He called out again, but there was no response. Sorry about that, he's not feeling the best today, Miss Lee said to the photographer, wearing a smile. I'll go over the photos on his behalf, she added, standing beside the photographer as they went through the photos. In that case, we should hope he's in a bad mood every day. Apart from his good looks, the vibe he gives off is domineering. He would have become a big star in the modeling industry. Does he not have any interest in that field? The photographer asked the lady as they reviewed the photos. The people in the music industry would flip out, she said, laughing. Keep the interview under 5 minutes, Ji Sehun told Hayeon as he sat down, getting ready for his interview. What? It's going to take 30 minutes at least. There were 15 questions on the list, Hayeon replied, getting a little tense. Ji Sehun observed him with an awkward look as Hayeon couldn't help but feel nervous. Excuse me. I'll be giving Mr. Ji a slight touch-up, the makeup artist said as she approached Ji Sehun. Yep, thank you, Hayeon said, walking away from them. The makeup artist rubbed some makeup on Ji Sehun's face as he watched her. He reached out his hand, touching the lady's face. What was that? Is there something on my face? She stuttered, her face turning red. Ji Sehun felt the texture on his fingers. Unlike Hayeon, her skin felt damp and unpleasant. What could the difference be? Ji Sehun thought. He wiped his hand with a hand wipe. Mr. Ji, we'll start the interview, a lady said, seated and holding a recording device. I heard it's been 2 weeks since you came back to Korea from New York. During that time period, you successfully finished your solo concert in Korea. How do you feel about that? She asked him. Ji Sehun didn't pay any attention, lost in his thoughts of holding Hayeon's hand. Sehun? The reporter said, drawing his attention. Looking up, he saw Hayeon. Ji Sehun didn't utter a word as he kept looking at his hand. Mr. Ji? The supervisor asked, looking tense as he didn't answer her. Following his performance in New York, he returned to Korea with the same success. It's been a long time since he did a concert in Korea, so he probably enjoyed his time performing and meeting his fans, Ms. Lee told the interviewer. I see. Sehun started cello at a very young age, didn't he? She asked Ms. Lee. I heard that he first played the violin at the age of 4. Was there a reason why he changed to playing the cello? Or was there someone who influenced him to do so? She asked again. Sehun always had a talent for stringed instruments like the violin since he was very young. As for the cello, he was mesmerized by the sound, Ms. Lee replied. Ji Sehun kept quiet, not uttering a word. We're already halfway through the interview, yet we have not heard a single word from Sehun himself, the interviewer said, pointing her microphone at him. Before we continue with the interview, would it be okay to ask for a quick cello performance? She asked with a relaxed look. I'm not your personal radio, Ji Sehun said almost immediately, looking at her with a straight face. I'm sorry. I was just asking as a fan, she told him, looking tense. As a fan? He asked. Yes? She replied. Pass me the cello, Ji Sehun said, sticking out his hand, gesturing for his cello. Soon, he began playing in the presence of the interviewer. He played skillfully, but his facial expression did not match the music. The interviewer felt moved as the tone resonated with her. Ji Sehun soon stopped playing, ending her request. How was that? He asked calmly. It was great, she replied, stuttering, her face flushed. No, Ji Sehun said, pushing his cello to the ground. It crashed loudly, breaking upon impact. That performance just now was the worst performance I've ever played, he told her before walking away, promptly ending the interview. Sehun. Ms. Lee called out as she ran to him. Where are you going? She asked, her face troubled. As of today, I am no longer playing the cello, he told her firmly. Let's go, he said, slipping his hand from hers as he walked out, slamming the door behind him. Outside the room, Ji Sehun tried calling Hayeon again, but she didn't answer his calls. She's not answering, he muttered to himself. Meanwhile, at the cafeteria where Hayeon worked, she attended to a customer. You ordered 1 iced caramel macchiato and 1 iced black coffee, right? She confirmed with the waiting customer. Your total is 8,001. The bell will ring once your drinks are ready, she added with a smile, handing back his debit card. Thank you, the customer replied. Just then, Ji Sehun stepped into the cafeteria. Welcome, may I take your order? Hayeon asked cheerfully, turning to see who the next customer was. Why are you ignoring my calls? Ji Sehun asked, his tone harsh. What are you doing here? Hayeon stuttered, looking tense. I'm asking you, why are you ignoring my calls? He demanded. Because I'm working. Can you please move if you're not going to order? I have to take the orders of the customers behind you, she told him, trying to maintain her composure. I'll order, answer me, he insisted. When do you get off? Ji Sehun asked. 11 p.m., she told him. Give me whatever, he said, handing her his debit card before walking away. She held his card, unable to utter a word, as she watched him leave. Hayeon orders an iced black coffee for him. Here's the coffee you ordered, she said, placing the drink and his card on his table. You're supposed to pick it up yourself at the counter, you know that, right? Don't just leave your card with me and walk away, she told him, a hint of frustration in her voice. That's for me to say. Don't ever walk away from me without my permission, Ji Sehun replied with authority. What do you want from me? I told you, I have no more business left with you, she told him, her face reddening. I do, he insisted. What you're doing now is harassment, don't you know that? She said, her tone serious. You're the one who started this whole thing. I can't stop thinking about you. I left in the middle of an interview to come here. Do you know what a big deal that is? You ignored all my calls, which led me to wait in line just to talk to you, Ji Sehun expressed, leaving her speechless. So, don't make such a big deal out by bringing me a cup of coffee. You have no idea how much I'm holding in, he tells her, his tone sounding harsh. Hello? Can someone take my order? A customer asked from the counter. Go on, Ji Sehun told her, giving her permission to attend to the waiting customer. She walked away from Ji Sehun's table to attend to the customer, leaving him alone in the cafeteria. Later that night, Ji Sehun remained the only customer seated in the empty cafeteria. Is he really going to wait until I finish my shift? Hayeon wondered, trying not to meet his gaze. Ji Sehun watched her intently with a piercing stare. As she closed the cafeteria for the night, Hayeon struggled to reach and lock the gate. Ugh, why is this up so high? She muttered in frustration, stretching but unable to reach it. Ji Sehun stepped forward and reached out, locking the gate for her. Better? Let's go now, he told her.
Wer?
Hayeon asked, looking both flushed and tense. To your house, he replied.
My house? Why?
Hayeon asked, clearly confused by his suggestion. Should we go to my house then? Ji Sehun proposed. She remained quiet for a moment, unsure of how to respond. We have to go somewhere. I'm not going to just stand around here, he insisted. Fine, you said you had something to say to me, right? Follow me, Hayeon finally replied, turning to lead the way. They soon arrived at a traditional restaurant. Hi ma'am, do you have an empty table? Hayeon asked politely upon entering. Yeah, inside, the waitress replied. Thank you, Hayeon acknowledged before turning her attention to Ji Sehun. He stood behind her, trying to waft away the scent of the shop with his hand. She glanced at him sidelong, noticing his cold sigh. Ji Sehun followed Hayeon closely as they entered the restaurant. Table for two? The waitress asked as Hayeon sat down. Yes, ma'am. We'll need 2 portions, thank you, Hayeon replied with a smile. Ji Sehun remained standing, hesitant to sit down. Don't just stand there, come sit, Hayeon urged him. Sit down, she said firmly, tapping her finger on the table. If you don't like my demanding attitude, then you'd better fix your attitude too. Understand? Her voice carried a cold edge. Ji Sehun calmly sat down, pulling the chair away from the table before settling next to Hayeon. Why are you sitting here? She asked, clearly tense. Then where should I sit? Ji Sehun asked calmly. Across from me, Hayeon suggested, pointing to the other side of the table. I'm more comfortable here, he replied. Did you think about it? Ji Sehun asked, changing the subject. What's there to think about? Why do you think I ignored your calls? Hayeon said, keeping her gaze fixed on the table. You shouldn't have ignored my calls, it upsets me, Ji Sehun replied. Why do you keep doing that? You keep blaming me for something personal. Should I do the same to you? Hayeon retorted, folding her arms and sounding disgusted by his accusations. Ji Sehun watched her silently, taking in her words. Because of you, I couldn't eat dinner, and you drained all my energy during my shift just by being there. I don't plan on staying with you longer than I have to, so if you have something to say it all now, she demanded, her voice harsh. Do I bother you? Ji Sehun asked, his gaze still fixed on her. If you look at people that way, yes, obviously, she replied, sounding irritated. Suddenly, someone laughed loudly from a distance, causing both of them to be momentarily distracted. Huh? Hayeon said, unable to hear Ji Sehun's words clearly over the noise. He reached out and held her chair, leaning forward towards her ear. I said, let's go somewhere quiet, he whispered to her. What for? I can hear you loud and clear right here, Hayeon said, pushing him away from her ear with her hand. Her face turned red. And don't just whisper in my ear like that without warning. It's rude, she added, covering her ear and turning her gaze away from him. Ji Sehun watched her quietly, noticing her discomfort. Here's your order, the waitress said, dropping Hayeon's food on the table. I haven't eaten all day, so you talk while I eat, she told Ji Sehun. Thank you, she added to the waitress. Hayeon thought her food looked delicious as she eyed her orders on the table. Suddenly, Ji Sehun interrupted her thoughts. Read this, he said, dropping a folded letter on the table. Hayeon took the letter and read it aloud. Compensation for damages? She asked, looking confused. You know, for the damage you caused me? I spoke with my lawyer earlier, and the estimated amount seems to be pretty large, Ji Sehun explained. If you accept my offer, I'll let it go and pretend it never happened, he told her calmly. I'm also a victim in this too. Why are you suddenly bringing your lawyer into this? Hayeon demanded, her voice tinged with frustration. What are you a victim of exactly? Ji Sehun asked, maintaining his calm demeanor. You dragged me out and yelled at me without any evidence, she replied, her face turning red with indignation. Isn't it true that you came into my waiting room without permission? You agreed and followed me, he countered. You called me over and sexually harassed me by asking me how much I am, and even blackmailed me at my workplace, she accused, refusing to give in to his demands. It was just a suggestion, not blackmail, Ji Sehun insisted. Listen to what I'm saying, he urged calmly. In a fit of anger, Hayeon crumpled the paper, tearing it to pieces and throwing it into the dustbin. Fine. I'll pay for the damages. Give me your lawyer's number, she told him firmly. Don't you think it'll be easier to talk to me instead of a lawyer? Ji Sehun asked her. No. Talking to a lawyer would be 100 times better than talking to you, she replied harshly, her tone firm. Do you even know how much you would have to pay for compensation? Ji Sehun pressed. I don't know, like hundreds of millions? She guessed uncertainly. Think bigger, he told her, leaning against the table and staring intently at her. Shoot, and that was just me guessing, she thought, feeling tense under his gaze. I'll talk to your lawyer first, and if it doesn't work out, I'll also prepare a lawsuit. Because like I said, I'm a victim in this too, she declared firmly. Why would you go through all of that? Ji Sehun asked, resting his face on his palm. That's how much I don't want to get involved with you, she replied, still facing him defiantly. I hate that I get nervous around you. Do you understand? I don't like the person I become around you. I hate getting all heated up and most of all, I hate that I keep sweating around you. But for some reason when I'm with you, Hayeon started, but Ji Sehun interrupted her. That's what I like about you, he interjected. What? Hayeon asked, taken aback. You getting nervous when you're with me? I like it when you sweat around me, he confessed, still watching her intently. Why did you come looking for me today? Hayeon asked, her gaze fixed on him, her face flushing red. Why do you think I can't stop thinking about you? It's because I want you, Ji Sehun told her sincerely. Ji Sehun stretched his hand towards Hayeon's face, but she slapped it away. Are you insane? Are you going to keep talking all this nonsense? Hayeon snapped at him, but Ji Sehun held her hand gently. What doesn't make sense? He asked her. Huh? Hayeon exclaimed, feeling flustered. Isn't it a good thing anyway? Ji Sehun inquired. You may be used to approaching people like that to get what you want, but I'm not won over that easily, she told him firmly. I don't do this with just anyone, Ji Sehun assured her, his gaze scanning her face intently. What? Hayeon asked, not quite understanding his statement. I just like you, he confessed, leaning closer to her. Excuse me. Can we get another bottle of soju here? Hayeon called out, signaling to the waitress and quickly turning her gaze away from Ji Sehun. My answer hasn't changed. So stop with the nonsense and eat. If you're not in the mood to eat, you can just go ahead and leave. You know my number, pass it on to your lawyer, she told him, putting some food in her mouth. Actually, you'll call for yourself, won't you? Since you're the victim? She added sarcastically. Ha, Ji Sehun sighed, placing his hand against his face in frustration. You're making this very complicated, he told her. Hayeon watched him quietly, wondering why he had come all the way here for this conversation, especially with his busy schedule. She observed his reaction carefully. You really know how to get my attention, don't you? Ji Sehun asked her, still covering his face with his hand. But she paid him no mind, continuing to eat her food. The more she ate, the more Ji Sehun watched her quietly. What's this? He asked, observing her food. You've never heard of fried tripe? She asked him. What is it? Beef? He asked, uncertain about what she meant. Never mind. You're going to lose your mind if I tell you what it is, Hayeon told him, still eating. She took a glass of soju. Ha, she exclaimed as she sighed with relief, pouring herself another drink. Ji Sehun slid the glass towards himself and drank it in one gulp. You drink? Hayeon asked, surprised as she watched him. I thought you wanted me to, he replied. I meant try the tripe, not drink on an empty stomach, she clarified. You have your own glass, don't use mine, Hayeon exclaimed, snatching her cup back from him. It's not that good, Ji Sehun commented with a serious expression. Why is everything so difficult with you? He asked in frustration. You're at it again? I already told you I'll pay for the damages as the law states, she reiterated firmly. You sure love the law, don't you? He remarked, holding up another glass. I don't want to feel inferior, Hayeon replied. If you were an object, I could have made you mine in an instant, Ji Sehun said casually as he drank another glass of soju. Hayeon gave him a cold look before downing another glass. Too bad I'm a human being, she retorted, slamming the glass on the table. Ji Sehun smirked at her. Just because you're human doesn't mean I can't, he said, moving closer to her. Their eyes locked as she stared at him seriously. Excuse me. Another bottle of soju, please, Hayeon requested abruptly, trying to change the topic. Go home, she added, attempting to chase him away. Why would I go anywhere when you're right in front of me? He thought to himself with a satisfied look, observing her. Here you are, the waitress said, placing a bottle of soju on the table. Let's drink, Ji Sehun suggested, holding up his glass. Hayeon stared at him for a moment before opening the bottle. The two continued drinking, and soon they were both drunk. Ha, Hayeon sighed, holding her head and an empty glass. Ji Sehun sat silently, his hands folded and eyes closed, feeling the effects of the alcohol. Hayeon watched Ji Sehun silently as he remained unresponsive. Pfft, he's a lightweight, she muttered to herself. Hey, wake up, she said, shaking him gently. But he didn't respond. Hello? She tried again.
Sehun?
Hey, get up, she said louder, then resorted to slapping him lightly on the cheek, but still, he didn't react. Shoot, what do I do? Do I need to call a cab? I don't think he'll be able to get home on his own, she wondered aloud, holding her head in concern. She noticed his phone sticking out from his pocket. Excuse me, she thought, deciding to take his phone from his pocket. Let's see the most recent call in his list, she mumbled, scrolling through his contacts until she found assistant Lee Ji-yeon's name. Hayeon tapped on it and held the phone to her ear as it began to ring. Don't call, Ji Sehun suddenly said, snatching the phone from her hand. You're up, Hayeon said to him. I never slept, Ji Sehun replied, still feeling tired. His phone slipped from his hand, falling to the ground.
Oh,
Hayeon cried out, unable to catch the phone as it hit the ground hard. Ugh, she sighed as she bent down to pick up the phone. Here, she said, trying to reach for it. Ji Sehun slid his hand to her face, using his finger to touch her lip. Your lips feel just as nice as I expected, he told her, making her face instantly flush red. He continued to feel her lips as she stared at him. I want you, Ji Sehun told her with a smile. Ji Sehun touched her lips, and they both gazed at each other in silence. Why are your lips wet? He asked her. Hayeon watched him but didn't answer. Ji Sehun held her head firmly, drawing her face closer to his, and kissed her. Hayeon moaned softly before pulling away abruptly. What do you think you're doing? She asked, stuttering as she wiped her lips. Ji Sehun took her hand, murmuring something unintelligible. What? Hayeon asked, unsure of his intentions. He leaned forward again, gripping her arm, causing her to cry out. Ignoring her protests, he kissed her forcefully. Hayeon moaned softly as she held his arm. She moaned before pushing him away. In the struggle, Ji Sehun accidentally bit her lip, causing her to cry out in pain. Ah! She exclaimed, wiping her lips. You wait, she told him, trying to catch her breath. Ji Sehun fell on her, and she held him as he lay on top of her.
Sehun?
She called out, feeling tense. Hayeon, let's go to my place, he muttered, still holding her. He's still not getting up? The waitress asked, noticing them together. I'm really sorry, but can you please pass me that phone on the floor? Hayeon asked the waitress, still holding onto Ji Sehun. Oh no, it's cracked, the waitress said, picking up the phone. I'll just put it in this bag over here, she told Hayeon, placing Ji Sehun's phone in her bag. Thank you. Do you think you can call us a cab? Hayeon asked the waitress politely. Okay, to where? The waitress asked Hayeon. Sehun, where do you live? Hayeon asked him. Soon, they were in the cab, with loud music playing. Ji Sehun still laid his head on Hayeon's shoulder as the cab drove. The taxi driver had the music volume turned up high. Turn the music off, Ji Sehun said softly. Sir, I'm really sorry, but do you think you can lower the volume? Hayeon asked the taxi driver politely. Ah, sure, the driver replied, lowering the music's volume. I'm apologizing an awful lot today, Hayeon said softly, turning her gaze to the window as they arrived at Ji Sehun's apartment. Ah! Hayeon exclaimed, stretching herself as she got out of the taxi. Ji Sehun remained still in the car, still drunk. Here we go, Hayeon muttered to herself, stretching a bit more. 1, 2, she counted, placing his arm over her shoulder and lifting him out of the taxi. She walked slowly, supporting him. Are you okay? She asked him softly, to which he replied with a faint no. They reached the building and Hayeon guided him gently to the elevator, which took them up to his apartment. Wow, Hayeon exclaimed upon seeing the apartment's aesthetics. People actually live in a place like this? She marveled as she scanned the surroundings. She carefully placed him on a sofa. Ha, she exhaled, slumping to the floor tiredly at Ji Sehun's feet. Ha, I'm exhausted, she murmured. Go drink some water, Ji Sehun said, rubbing her head gently. I think you need it more than I do, Hayeon replied, turning her face to Ji Sehun. Why did you drink so much when you're such a lightweight? She asked, looking at him with a questioning expression. But he just grinned, watching her silently. Wait, why does he look so normal, she thought, observing his facial expression. Miss Lee steps into the sitting room. Sehun, that's enough. Get up, she says with an ordering tone. Ha, he says with a disappointed tone before he gets up from his chair. Why did you suddenly go MIA after calling me? You scared me. I thought something was up, she asks him. What did you eat? This is an unfamiliar scent, she says, covering her nose as he strolls past her. Oh no, I am sorry. Did I interrupt you two at the wrong time? She says, facing Hayeon. Oh no, not at all, Hayeon tells her. If it was just the two of us, I may have gone along with the mood, Hayeon thought, arranging herself as she tucked in her shirt. I can't believe what's happened today, she thought. I must have been drunk, she concluded. I'll be on my way now, she told Miss Lee. It's late, spend the night, Ji Sehun requested. He must be insane, she thought inwardly. Oh right, your phone is in my bag, it's a bit cracked, she told him, removing his phone from her bag. But it was him who dropped it, not me. The only thing I did was pick it up for him, she said, almost crying as she passed the phone over to Miss Lee. That's okay. It's not his first time, Miss Lee told her with a charming smile. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lee Ji-yeon, Sehun's personal assistant, she said, stretching her hand for a handshake. Nice to meet you, Hayeon told her, shaking her hand. Ji Sehun stood behind Miss Lee, observing them. I suggest you go wash up, Sehun, Miss Lee says to him. Later, he scoffed, but she insisted he do it now. He gets quiet before turning slowly and heading for the bathroom. Phew, Hayeon said, breathing a sigh of relief. I'm Kim, Hayeon said, about to introduce herself, but was cut off by Miss Lee, who tells her she already knew who she was. I know it's a bit late, but can we talk? She asked Hayeon, to which she said sure. I also have some things I want to discuss, Hayeon tells her. They soon get seated, facing each other. Miss Lee observes Hayeon for a while, causing her to feel a bit tense under her watchful gaze. Miss Hayeon, you're quite charming, she tells Hayeon, breaking the silence as she crossed her legs. Huh? Hayeon said. You look hot, so I turned the air on. You'll cool down soon, Miss Lee tells her. Do you want something to drink? She asks, rising from her seat. No, I'm fine. What was it that you wanted to talk to me about? Hayeon asked, turning down her offer. Seems like you've been drinking. Hold on a moment, Miss Lee tells her, walking away. She soon returns with a cup of water. Here, have this. It should be cold, she said, placing the cup on the table. Thank you, Hayeon tells her. Did you drink with Sehun? She inquired. Yeah, then one thing led to another, Hayeon tells her, holding the cup. Do you mind telling me what you ate and where? She inquired further. Fried tripe, Hayeon tells her. Fried tripe? Miss Lee asked, trying to hold back her laugh. But I'm the only one who ate, Hayeon tells her. Must have been noisy there, Miss Lee tells her. Does he not like noisy places? Hayeon inquired. He doesn't. He's actually very sensitive to sound. I'm sure you know why, she tells her. Yet, he's been going to a lot of noisy places lately. You're aware that it's mainly because of you, right? Miss Lee asked with a calm demeanor. Yeah, he mentioned something about compensation earlier during dinner, Hayeon tells her. Oh, about that, Miss Lee chimed in. What would I need to do for compensation? Hayeon asks. It's obvious if we take it to court, Miss Lee was saying before Hayeon cuts into her statement. Can you give me an estimated amount? She asked Miss Lee. Not sure. It could be millions, it depends on what he asks for. This is only if you want to take the legal route, she tells Hayeon. No matter how much he asks for, I'm willing to pay for the damage I caused, all the damage I did to his concert. I will pay for it. I won't avoid accountability, it was my fault. So it's only right that I take responsibility and set things straight, Hayeon said, her gaze cast to the floor, her demeanor turning sad. Miss Lee observed her silently. But I can't say that he's an innocent victim in this. I want him to take accountability for his rude behavior and the things he said to me, Hayeon said, facing Miss Lee, her voice sounding confident. Of course, Miss Lee tells her. And I don't want him to keep showing up unexpectedly anymore, she adds. Miss Hayeon, Miss Lee said, tapping her finger on the table. Why don't we have a more constructive conversation, shall we? A conversation where both parties are not affected negatively. You and I both. What do you say? Are you interested? Miss Lee asked calmly. What do you mean? Hayeon asked, sounding confused. We both have an issue with Ji Sehun, don't we? Since I'm his assistant, if we take things the legal route, I'll have to get involved in everything. As for you, you'll be bothered by all the legal documents. You're already exhausted from job hunting, it'll only drain you even more. And the worst part for you would be the financial aspect, Miss Lee tells her. I'm being realistic here. This isn't something that would be easy to deal with for someone your age, she adds, fixing her gaze on Hayeon. So, what exactly are you trying to say? Hayeon asked, still not understanding her point. Do what Ji Sehun wants, Miss Lee tells her, her face wearing a silent smile. Excuse me? Hayeon asked, looking surprised. However, we will need a contract to clearly distinguish who is superior in this relationship. Also, it wouldn't hurt to have a safety net. In the contract, you can include the things that are off limits. As for the cost, he has nothing but money, so ask for as much as you want. I'm giving you tips on how to negotiate with Ji Sehun, Miss Lee tells her. Sorry, I'm not interested. I'm already tied up looking for a job. I can't waste another second getting involved with him, Hayeon said, turning her face away from Miss Lee, as she declined the offer. This can count as experience on your resume, Miss Lee tells her. Experience? Hayeon asked, confused. With his name on your resume, companies will look at you differently, she tells Hayeon. Hayeon fell silent, fidgeting with her fingers as she struggled to respond. It shouldn't be that difficult. I heard you specialized in managing difficult clients at your previous job, Miss Lee said, resting her face slightly on her hand. That was over the phone. I never had to deal with them face to face, Hayeon replied calmly. I can tell you're stubborn, considering you still want to take the legal route even after being informed of how much the compensation is. And I can tell you're mentally strong because you're sitting here with confidence, even after spending the day with Ji Sehun, Miss Lee continued, causing Hayeon to blush. And you don't strike me as the type to tell anybody about this. I don't think you're a bad person. If you endure your time with Ji Sehun, I can even recommend you to a good company. With that level of patience, you'd be welcomed anywhere, she assured her. Ji Sehun is going back to Germany in a month. Either he'll be sick of you by then, or even if that isn't the case, the relationship won't last because he has to go to New York after Germany. He won't be back in Korea for almost 2 years, Miss Lee informed her calmly. Hayeon doesn't say a word. I understand what you're trying to say, she tells Miss Lee as she stands from her seat. As she makes her way to walk out on Miss Lee, she's informed that Ji Sehun doesn't want to play the cello anymore because of her, causing her to pause. What? Hayeon asks, turning to look at her. Isn't it obvious? Cello was the only thing he knew before he met you. He even left in the middle of an interview to go see you. That's how much he's into you at the moment, Miss Lee tells her, remaining calm as she sits. You're lying, right? Hayeon tells her, not believing her words. It's true. What would I gain by lying to you, Miss Hayeon? She asks with a smile. I'm going to go now. I'm tired and I have to work tomorrow, Hayeon tells her. Okay, this is my number. You can call me if you have any questions, or even if you don't, feel free to call me anyway, she says, handing Hayeon her card. Thank you, Hayeon tells her. Do you want me to call you a cab? Miss Lee asks. No, thank you. I can take myself home, Hayeon tells her. You drank, didn't you? Miss Lee asks with a keen look. Yes, but I'm fine, Hayeon tells her, shaking her head slightly. Hayeon walks away from her, heading towards the door. She's quite prudent, Miss Lee says, wearing a smirk. Soon, Ji Sehun walks out from the bathroom, wearing his robe. Where's Hayeon? He asked Miss Lee, who was sitting and waiting for him. She goes mute for a while. She left? He asked. Miss Lee nodded, signaling yes. It's late. I've talked to her, so don't worry about it, she tells him, reassuring him. What do you mean? How? What did you say? He demanded, keeping a straight look. I have better social skills than you do. I'll make sure you find your motivation to want to play the cello again, so trust me and wait, she said rather rudely, her hands folded, unaffected by his demanding voice. You're confident? He says to her, dropping his towel on the floor. Yes, she replied calmly. Oh, really? I guess I can give you a day to take care of this. But that's it. Just one day. I don't care what you do. Whatever it takes, just bring her back here, he says. If she doesn't give me the answer I want to hear, you'll pay, he said, leaning towards her, causing her to become tense. Okay, Miss Lee tells him, with a smile. The next morning, Hayeon wakes up looking tired. I don't care whether he plays the cello or not. What does that have to do with me? She says, still looking tired as she sits on her bed. Ugh, whatever. I'd better wash up for work, she says as she makes her way slowly to the bathroom, dragging herself despite her tired look. As she takes her shower slowly, she wonders, is he serious about quitting cello? Even when I was sweating in front of him, he didn't seem to be bothered by it, she says softly, allowing the water to soothe her thoughts. She goes mute for a while. Whatever, I'd better get to work, she concludes, wrapping up her bath. At work, Hayeon looks around the cafe as she walks in, just in case Sehun was inside, but he wasn't. Relieved, she stands behind the counter with a big smile on her face, unaware that a big change is coming her way. Here's your order, she tells a customer excitedly. Enjoy, she says after serving him. Someone familiar steps into the cafeteria. Welcome, Hayeon says, turning to look at the customer. She says, sounding shocked. One iced black coffee, that'll be 3,501, Hayeon said to the customer. Iced black coffee, she thought, her mind briefly drifting back to Ji Sehun's earlier appearance at the cafeteria. Hello, hello. A customer called, jolting her back from her thoughts. Ah, yes? Sorry about that, she said, apologizing. The bell will vibrate once your order is ready, she told the customer as he walked back to his seat. Hi, welcome to, Hayeon started, welcoming an incoming customer, but she was surprised by who it was.
Gina,
she exclaimed, almost in shock at the sight of her friend in the cafeteria. Hey girl, how are you? Gina said with a smile. Where's your boyfriend? She inquired. He went to see his friend. I didn't feel like going home, so I decided to stop by to see you, Gina tells her. Good choice. What do you want to drink? Hayeon asked with a smile. I'll have an iced latte, Gina tells her. It's almost your break time, right? Let's grab dinner together, Gina suggested. Yeah, let's do that, Hayeon agreed. The ladies soon went to a restaurant to have dinner together. Did your manager say anything? Hayeon asked gently as Gina checked her phone. Nope, Sehun said he was fine. What are they going to say to that? She asked Hayeon. That's a relief, Hayeon tells her calmly. Is everything good with you? Gina asked. Hayeon responded, almost absent-minded. Of course, nothing's going on with me and Sehun, she said with a smile.
Sehun?
There's something going on between you two, isn't there? Gina asked with a serious look, pausing the phone she pressed. Hayeon sat down, looking stunned. I think I got myself into a tricky situation with that guy, she said with a sigh. We kissed, she tells Gina, causing her friend to drop her phone in shock. Wow, who would have imagined something like that would happen? Gina said, leaning in to catch the gist. I won't know for sure what's going to happen unless we actually go through the legal process though. I can't even tell my parents, Hayeon tells her with a sad and gentle tone. What do you mean by legal process? Gina inquired. What do you think? Do you think I can file a lawsuit against him? Hayeon asked casually. What? That's crazy, Gina said, slamming her hand against the table. Listen carefully. Your emotions seem to be getting ahead of you right now. You have to understand that your opponent is Ji Sehun, someone who has nothing but money, she tells Hayeon, sounding serious. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm worried, Hayeon tells her, sitting straight. All you have to do is be with him for a month and you're guaranteed a good job, Gina said, sounding harsh. She's not getting me a job. She just said she would put in a good word for me, Hayeon tells her casually. Are you stupid? Gina asks her, looking perplexed. Hey, no need for name-calling, Hayeon tells her, covering her ears. You've seen that guy. He's not normal. If he was, I wouldn't be reacting this way. You even said yourself that he was insane, and I agree with you. I can't have a normal conversation with him. He just does whatever he wants, she tells Gina. Get a grip and focus on reality. Are you in the position right now to handle all that? Gina tells her with a stern look, causing Hayeon to turn red, unable to say a word. No matter where you go, it'll be the same. There's this person who bullies you at work and they get transferred to another department. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be another jerk waiting for you. There's always going to be that someone who gets under your skin. Maybe even worse, Gina tells her. I know, Hayeon replies. Let's say you do get into a company. There's always going to be that one insane colleague. Besides, it's not like you've even found a job yet. It's just 1 month with Sehun and they guarantee a job recommendation. It also counts as experience. Yet you don't want to do it? If I were you, I would do it for a year. He even said he'd match your desired pay, didn't he? Gina asked, her voice sounding sharp. Yeah, that's true but, Hayeon said calmly, sounding as if she was being scolded by Gina. I don't know anything about him. How could I spend 24 hours with him? It's not a few hours he's asking for. He's asking for 24 hours with him, she tells Gina calmly. So, how is that any different from when you handled difficult customers at your previous job? You just need to manage one person this time. If it's one person, it has to be easier. Also, you can write a contract. Include all the damage you've received in there. Gina tells her. Here's your order, the waiter said, placing their order on the table as Gina continued scolding Hayeon. On top of that, you can add the cost of stress you will be receiving from this in advance. Do you know how many people out there walk into their office every day enduring all sorts of harassment along with their difficult bosses? Gina demanded, holding her chopsticks, her face serious. You only leave once. When life gives you lemons, you need to make lemonade. They don't say that for nothing. Do you know why people buy a lottery ticket every week? Gina said, asking Hayeon. For luck, Hayeon said slowly. Exactly. He could end up being a lucky charm for you, Gina tells her. Didn't he say he wanted to stop playing the cello because of you? It really depends on how you look at the situation, she tells Hayeon. At Ji Sehun's apartment, he sat in his parlor observing the ticking clock. It was almost midnight. 1 minute left, he said softly, his gaze fixed on the clock. He leaned forward, resting his hands on his knees. I wonder what it is you want. Something you want so desperately that it hurts you inside. The void that you can't fill. I'll fill up that desire and make you realize your only choice depends on me, he thought as the second hand ticked loudly. You'll realize I'm the only one you can run to. It would be best if you came to me on your own, but even I know that is too much to ask for. Time is on my side anyway, he thought as the clock struck midnight. Ji Sehun stood up but stopped from walking away when he heard his doorknob being turned. It was Hayeon. She walked in with Miss Lee. You're here, he said, wearing a smile. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.